Good evening, ladies. Welcome to week 2 of the Mom Dreams Book Club. I am so excited to continue the discussion that we started last week. So, we'll do a little recap, talk about the chapters we read this week, and then we will see where this discussion goes. So, as a recap, we did an introduction. We talked about what our definition of happiness was. And I said that my definition, I stole it from the book. And so we kind of dug deeper into that and we had a challenge. Our challenge was to do a joy journal for the week. So write down the things that bring us joy. And we do understand that many times it is easier to write about the bad things than to write about the good. I would say I did okay. I didn't do it every day. I did try, but I did not do it every day. So I'll kind of talk about what those things were. So for the 23rd, which was the day of our last meeting, the thing that brought me joy was finishing my first book club recording. It was exciting, it was fulfilling, it was great to talk about something that meant something to me and that has impacted me just from the perspective of a different author. On the 24th, something that brought me joy was connecting with a friend. I spoke to one of my friends on the phone and we talked for a little over an hour and a half, just catching up. We talk pretty regularly, but for the last couple of weeks, she's been busy, I've been busy, we've had a lot going on. So we finally got to connect and kind of catch up. And we always give each other really good insight about what's going on in our lives and what God is doing. So it was encouraging, it was uplifting, and it brought me joy. On the 26th, relaxing after work. So it was Friday, and it's been a long time since a weekend felt like a weekend. Because sometimes we get so busy, we have so much to do with the kids, we have sports and we have house things and to-do lists and things like that. But Friday, after I got off work, maybe because I was intentional about the things that I talked about last week, it really felt like a weekend. So I was able to come down a lot quicker from my work day and really enjoy my family. Friday is family day for me, myself, and my daughter. And so every Friday we try to do something. Sometimes it's inside, sometimes it's, outside the home. But it was our family day. So I really enjoyed that. On Sunday, we visited some friends. They invited us over. We had like an early dinner, and they had an idea about something that they were going to build, kind of in addition to their house. They call it the pavilion. But they talked to us about it. I think it was about 2 years ago when they started talking about the process and talking about what they wanted to do. So at the end of this week, it will be completely done. But when we came on Sunday, everything was up. The TVs are up. The covering is up. They like to host. So it's a good space outside. It has a stove and it has a sink. They have running water out there. They have electricity out there with plugs. So to see it from idea to actually manifesting made me happy. It brought joy, and I could see how excited they were. They've already been enjoying it, going out there for coffee and things like that. So on Sunday, that was something that was really, really encouraging for me. So those were my joy things for the week. I think this week, because I'm going to continue doing this, I'm going to try to write a little more. I kind of did bullet points because it's easier. But when I did journal, usually in the past, I would go into a little more detail. So for this week, my goal in being more intentional is not just to write bullet points of the things that bring me joy, but also to go in a little more detail, how it made me feel, why it brought me joy, why I'm excited about it. So it's a good thing. So this week, the chapters that we covered was creating reality, the first question, and a pretty girl is a girl with a smile on her face. So she kind of goes into some detail about her background, and I feel like it brought up some really, really good questions. So we'll talk about some of those questions and then dig a little deeper. So some of the things that came out of creating reality, she talked about people that feel bad about being happy. How can I be happy in a world when so much is going on? How can I be happy when there are people starving? How can I be happy when there are people that are struggling and don't have what they need? And it's funny because that is not an area where I have struggled, or that was not my reasoning behind being happy. I believe that in a world when we do our part, whatever that may look like, so that may be sewing into children, that may be helping the homeless, when we do our part, people have an opportunity to get more. And I make an effort, a conscious effort to do my part with that I work with people in the community, with my family. And so being happy, I don't feel guilty about being happy based on what's going on externally or in the world with people I guess I don't know, or people that are suffering. I do pray for them, and we do sow into people that are less fortunate, and that's how we contribute to that, minimizing that. I know there's some things we can't stop, but we have the ability to impact it. So I don't feel bad about being happy because of the suffering in the world. But I did think a little deeper on that question and made it personal for me. So in seasons of my life when I was not happy, or I felt guilt about doing well, why did I feel bad about that? Why did I feel bad that I had joy and other people didn't? And I think for me, that question more resonates with my family. Why do people believe it's wrong to be happy? And so some of you know, and I'll go into a little detail. In the last year and a half, we've had a lot of family dynamics change, which have been very, very difficult. And one of the things that changed is my son no longer lives here. And that was a very hard transition. It was different. He was 16 at the time when it happened. And I think as I worked through that transition and all the changes that were involved, it was very hard for me to find or create space for me to be happy. How can I be happy when my family is broken? And that's how I felt in the beginning. How can I continue to smile, even though I did? Many times it was an external, trying to push through, trying to create space, trying to be as positive as possible, even though things weren't the way I wanted them to be. And so how can you be happy when you look at your family, or you look around and you see that things are not the way you desire them to be, the way they should be, or the way you thought they would be? And I think that is the question that resonated. That part of the question is what resonated with me when I made it personal. And I can say in that, how can you be happy when, your children are going through things? Or how can you be happy when your husband is sick? Or how can you be happy when you're going through some financial struggles, you lost your job? How can you be happy when there are things happening that are very, very difficult? How do you find joy in those things? And I will say a little deeper. She asked the question, but I will answer it for myself. So for me, I did feel guilty. Like we did some things during the year just to kind of manage the stress and the change. Like we went out of town for our anniversary. That's not a bad thing. We had something to celebrate. We were celebrating 15 years of marriage, and every decision that we made together, even though it was difficult. We spent time with friends even during that time. And it wasn't that we were ignoring the problem or pretending like we were fine. It was that we had to create balance. We could have stayed at home, barricaded ourselves in, sat in our sadness and our sorrow and feeling defeated and wondering what we could have done differently. We could have done that, but definitely therapy was a big thing that I went through. And some people don't agree with therapy, but I believe that part of it is choosing. When you can accept that where things are, wherever it is, it's not your fault. Or maybe it is, but in this situation, there's nothing additional that we could have done in those moments for the outcome to be different. So, no, I am still not happy about the outcome. I'm not happy about what happened. If I think about it too long, it makes me very sad. However, I do have the ability to find joy in life in spite of what I'm experiencing. And it's interesting because in the introduction, she talks about how joy is really finding moments where we can have joy in the sorrowful moments. How do we find joy in those moments? And some moments are more difficult to find joy in. And also, when you don't know how long something will last or when resolution will happen, sometimes it makes it more difficult to find joy in it because you want to focus on it. You want to fix it. You want to figure out, is there something else you can do? And many times in those situations, at least in those moments, there is nothing you can do. So, how do you navigate this space? Make a decision that I'm going to find joy in moments, whatever those moments may be, in spite of the fact that I am unhappy with the situation. The situation cannot consume me because then that gives me the inability to be present for the other things I have to be present for. I have another child at home. I have a job that I have to go to. I have people that I serve. And yes, we took time to process and get to a place where we felt safer and more comfortable and at a place where we can think clearly and pour into people safely without doing harm, because sometimes when you're hurt or you're angry or you're dealing with change, you can do more harm than good if you're not working through where you are. But there were things around me that required my presence. And so I chose not to like walk around like a mummy and go through the motions, because I could have done that, and rightfully so considering everything that happened. But I said to myself, I don't want to do that. This situation that's happening right now is temporary. It is not going to be the situation forever. And there is nothing I can currently do to change it. Maybe there will come a time where I can. Maybe there will come a moment where there's something that I can do. But right now, there is nothing I can do. So I can find joy in it. He's safe. I know where he is. My family is safe. My daughter's doing okay. My husband's doing okay. I have a job. I have things to pour into. I enjoy XYZ, whatever those things. I enjoy going for walks before it gets too hot. I can still do the things that bring me joy, even when there are situations that are less than ideal, even when there are situations that I can't control. And so I think that's when the question really resonated with me. And I would say that was one of the hardest things that I have ever experienced. So to be able to get from sorrow and grief to a place of joy is completely a God thing. And I have an amazing therapist that teaches you how to work through where you are to move forward with an understanding that this is temporary. I don't know how it's going to shift or when. And many times, uncertainty makes us either freeze in time and we don't move and we don't grow because we're like, I don't know what's going to happen. And I'd much rather just stay right here. And I will say that for me wasn't an option because I've lived a life of being still and being frozen and being gripped by sorrow or grief or depression. And I said to myself, we're not going to do that. I don't know what we're going to do, but we're not going to do that. And I also believe that when you are a person that we're far from perfect, but you choose to do your best, to do the right thing, to apologize when you're wrong, to acknowledge when something is not right, all of those things, you deserve joy. That's something that should not be taken away from you and should not be given away. But sometimes we have to figure out how to get to that place. And so, honestly, this book is great for helping you navigate where you are to get to not just a false sense of happiness. I'm going to smile and I'm going to say my affirmations and I'm going to be positive, to actually a place where you live and you breathe and you believe in the things that you are saying. So, I thought that was interesting. Now, she goes a little deeper. We're talking about personal, ourselves, and she talks about feminine moral development. So I have never heard of this name, these stages, this topic. And so I thought this was interesting. Sometimes it's good to put a name with your process. And so she talks about women and how we go through different stages of development morally that impacts our selfishness, our ability to give. So she starts with what she calls a girl stage, where when we're young, when we're children, everything is me, mine, I don't want to share. And we're very selfish naturally. If it's mine, I don't want to share it. There are some people that naturally want to give, but most children, you have to teach them not to be selfish. So we teach our children that selfishness is wrong. And everybody teaches what that looks like differently. And I will say, there are some situations where we do not teach selfishness is wrong in a healthy way. But at that age when they're still developing, we just want them to understand that everything is not yours. It's not me and mine. A lot of things are ours and us. And so we teach our young children, no, share. We teach our young children, it's not just about you, it's about others. So then we transition as we get older to what she calls the conventional stage. And it's a feeling that it's wrong to act in our own self interest and we worry about everyone else. And there are very few women that I know that did not either go through this stage or still live here. And she talks about how women get stuck in this conventional stage, that we feel bad about considering ourselves and the decisions that we make in movement and growth, that the most important thing is everyone else. And yes, it is important that we're selfless. It is important that we are willing to sacrifice, because if you're married, if you have children, if you have a career, you're going to have to sacrifice something, your time, your energy, your gifts. Sometimes you're going to have to do things you don't want to do. But in conventional stage, we see it as wrong to include ourselves because we're still developing. How do we learn how to give? And I will tell you, I was not an extremely selfish person before children and a husband, but I was self-absorbed. And what I mean by that, many of my decisions were what is best for me. And not in a selfish way, because I cared about other people. I was giving, I gave my time, I wanted to help others, I was willing to help others. But in that space, it took me a little time to get past me, mine, and what's mine. But the self-absorption impacted everything. But no one saw it as that because I was not responsible for anybody but myself. I was only responsible for my decisions. What my life looked like was mainly based on what my parents did or allowed, and then it was based on what I decided. So when I started getting children, when I had my son, it was in that moment that I realized, okay, I am responsible for a whole human, a whole person. And I am young myself. I was 20. And I knew that, okay, I'm mature for my age and I make pretty good decisions. This was not in the plan, but I have to arrange my life and change things to adapt to this new thing that I've never done, that no one has really talked to me about or really wants to talk about. And my friends can't help me because they're still in college. So I am kind of on my own. These are not the type of conversations I had with my mother, sometimes with my grandmother, but I had to figure what this looked like for me because there were some things I did not want to repeat that I saw my mother do or I saw my grandmother do. But also, I didn't have a good foundation because I was literally 20. So it was then that I transitioned to the conventional stage, and my decisions were what's best for my child. He's not here yet, but what's best for him. So one of the things that I did, one of the decisions I made was I was at Baylor at the time, and I was in a relationship with his dad. And so I said, I'm in a relationship. He has a desire to be close to his son, and my family is home. It does not make sense for me to, to stay here, to stay at school here. I'm going to go to school, but I need to go home where my resources are, where my family is, where his dad is who wants to be involved, and where I can have support. It did not look like how I thought it would, but in that moment, that was me making a decision that I felt was best for others. I wanted to stay where I was personally, and because I had never done this before, I thought in that moment it was best to do what I did. Looking back on it, was that my only option? It wasn't my only option. It might have still been the best one. I'll never know because that's the decision I chose and that's what my life looks like. But from that, we got married later on. We had another child. But it was in that space of the conventional stage when I started a family that the majority of my decisions, there were a couple that weren't in the best interest of everyone else. And that was usually when I was angry or when I got tired of self sacrificing everything. And it was very rare, but it did sometimes happen. But the third stage that she talks about is the post conventional stage. When we learn that it's just as wrong to ignore our own needs as it is to ignore the needs of others. And I believe that's where I am now. That I finally understand that, yes, I have to make decisions because with other people in mind, because whatever I do, whatever I say, whatever I decide is going to impact my family, my husband, my children, my own life, even the people that I'm connected with. It's going to impact them. But it's not conventional where I think it's wrong to consider how I feel and what's best for me. No, I include that in my decision making process. So I learned that I have to be included because I need to be able to look up and see me. I don't, it's not about my roles. Yes, I'm a mother. Yes, I'm a wife. Yes, I'm an employee. I'm a sister. I'm a daughter. I'm a friend. I'm all of those things. But if every decision that I make is with everyone else in mind and I don't consider myself, my life is going to be made up of decisions that are based on other people's needs and expectations. And that does not lead to a very fulfilling life. And I will tell you from experience, it takes a long time to undo those things. And when you undo them, some people are not very receptive to the transition that takes place because you really do change. They are used to you considering them more. They didn't know maybe that you weren't considering yourself at all. So when you begin to include you in that decision making process, which will look totally different, which means you'll be more verbal about how you feel, which means you'll say the things you'll need to say. Like, I understand that this seems like the best option, but those buts, they're not used to hearing your buts. They're hearing you, you see you saying, yes, that is the bigger picture. This is best for everyone. But sometimes in the bigger picture, we don't include ourselves, and we should be included in the bigger picture if the decision is going to impact us. So this post-conventional stage is where we understand that I'm just as important. This is my life too. So when we make decisions, let's make decisions that include me, that include what I need as well, not just the needs of others. And so I am learning how to navigate this space. When am I potentially being selfish because I have returned or no, because I've arrived at this post-conventional stage. That's what she calls it. Am I being over combative because I feel like I have to fight for myself? And even that's an old behavior. I don't have to do that. I live in a collaborative home and family where everyone is allowed to say, hey, that sounds like a good idea, but have you considered this? So sometimes we have to navigate this space and it will look different depending on how large the decision is. Because a decision like what we're eating for dinner, that doesn't impact me as much unless I'm trying to eat really, really healthy and they're trying to get something really, really bad. Then I have to use self control and say, hey, y'all eat that, I'm gonna eat something different. But if it's like a city change or a job change or moving homes or things like that, we have to consider everyone. And also, I will say for our family, it is also we pray during our decisions. But do you understand? If you are a believer, God considers you too in the plan. So if every decision you're making is only concerned with everyone else, then maybe that's not God's plan. And I'm not saying that you're going to always be perfectly happy with the decisions you have to make, because sometimes hard decisions won't make you happy, but it's what's needed. But considering yourself in the process is what's important. So she asked, and then it's funny because then she asked the question. The first question was, how heavily do you weigh your own happiness when making life decisions? For me, I don't necessarily weigh happiness. I weigh what is the goal? What is it that I or we desire? So, for example, if we have a financial goal, and that means we have to cut back on things that we enjoy. Maybe we don't go out as much, eat as much, or I start doing my own hair. There have been seasons. Or we cut back on just pleasures that we usually do because we're saving for something. That's not gonna make me happy. I like getting my hair done regularly. I like going out to eat regularly. So happiness, no. But what is the end goal that we're reaching for that is ultimately going to bring us happiness and joy? And so that makes a difference. So I don't necessarily weigh happiness with decisions that we make. I do weigh outcomes, the desired goal, and how this change is going to impact me. And if I'm concerned about my ability to be disciplined enough to reach that goal, what we have to do to support one another so that we get there. So for us, decision making is not as much about happiness. So my question I want to change is how heavily do you consider yourself when you are making decisions, especially if you have a family, children, husband, both, or you're a business owner. So you have staff. So whatever decisions you make impact people's ability to bring in income for their families. How heavily do you consider yourself when you make decisions? If you are very career driven, maybe you don't have a family, but you are trying to reach something. So are you over sacrificing for that goal and maybe sacrificing a part of who you are when you're making decisions, which ultimately will not bring you joy? You'll get there, but will you be able to enjoy arriving there if you've sacrificed your morals or your character or parts of you that are necessary that make you you? So I think about all of those things, even the environment that you work in. We know we have some challenges in corporate spaces. So when you're making a decision to handle a situation, maybe there's a conflict or handle something that inappropriate happens, are you looking at, I'm afraid I'm going to lose my job, or I just want to make myself comfortable? Or are you willing to get uncomfortable because it's necessary to make what you're experiencing better? So how heavily do you consider yourself when you make decisions? Not your happiness, but just yourself. How heavily do you consider your needs? Your need to feel safe, your need to feel secure, your need to be able to communicate. And I'm not saying, express raw emotion in the workplace. Typically, that's not appropriate, but you should be able to communicate. You should be able to express when there's an issue. And that's a conversation maybe for another day. But how heavily do you consider you and your needs when you make decisions? Are you willing to sacrifice things you actually need for the happiness or the comfortability of someone else? And sometimes maybe that's necessary, but do you do it too much? Are you always trying to make others feel comfortable? If you are always trying to make others, always, not sometimes, always, trying to make others feel comfortable, most likely you are not operating in that space of post conventional interaction. Your needs matter. I'll say it again. Your needs matter. And sometimes it takes some time to learn how to incorporate your needs in a process or at a workplace or in a family, but your needs matter. So don't make decisions to make other people comfortable because it's easier. I'll give you an example. For me, I was very non-combative. I hated conflict. I did not like to argue. I still don't. But sometimes conflict is needed when there needs to be change. Something needs to change. And if you're not willing to face it, deal with it, talk about it, nothing's going to change. Things are going to stay the same or get worse. And so early in our marriage, wasn't very emotionally expressive. I am a lot more now. Ask them. But was not extremely emotionally expressive, and I did not like conflict. And when emotions got too high, I was the type of person that would shut down, like silence, not say anything. And then after the conflict is over, because it ended because I stopped talking, think about all the things I should have said. And I'm not a person that argues well on my feet. I'm a thinker. I have to process information. I don't just say whatever comes to mind because I want to be intentional about what I say. I'm very intentional about my words. I'm a communicator. That is my background. And so when I say something, I want to make sure it's really expressing what I think and how I feel. My husband is very expressive. He always has been. So he can think on his feet. He can respond on his feet. So when we had conflict in, the beginning stages of our marriage, he won a lot of conflict because I did not want to argue or I did not want to keep talking about it because I saw that it was escalating and I didn't like conflict. I had to learn that conflict is necessary sometimes. So sometimes that argument does have to happen. Not disrespect, not yelling, not all of that, but sometimes that disagreement has to happen so that he has an understanding of where I am and what I think and how I really feel. And I have an understanding of where he is, how he thinks, and how he really feels. And so it made our communication better because I was willing to go a little deeper, stay a little longer, sometimes get uncomfortable and have those conversations. It's necessary. And I say that because how can I include myself in processes, in decision making, if he doesn't know what I need? And how can he know what I need if I don't tell him? How can I have my needs met if I don't know what I need? All of those things are involved in what she's talking about. I cannot involve myself and my needs in a decision making process if I don't know. How do I know? How do I learn that about myself? How do I learn? I don't think that's going to work for me. I, is this a growth moment where I need to grow into this, or is this a put my foot down? This is not good for me mentally, emotionally, spiritually. That took time to learn. Where now we can have a conversation and I can say, that's a good idea. But maybe let's do it kind of your way, but a little this way, because if we do it that way, I know this will be one of the outcomes. And that for the big picture will not be good for everyone. Now, is every decision going to make everyone comfortable? No. But some will, but you have to be willing to include yourself and your needs in that process. So when you are making decisions, married or single, mother or just employee, caretaker of your family or your parents, consider you. Now, are there seasons where you have to sacrifice a lot more than usual? Absolutely. But your whole life should not be you making decisions where your needs are not considered. Where are you in that? Where are you? Are you even in it? And you will find that when you make decisions like that long term, you do begin to go through the motions because nothing is for you. Where are you included? I was talking to a young lady actually today, and she's an entrepreneur. She works a regular job. She has a large family. She has a couple of children that are young, like well, her youngest is around 3. And the needs of her family is changing. She has an older daughter who's in high school, and then her other kids are in the middle. And she sees a need that her family may need a little more of her. And so she was willing to shut everything down, the entrepreneur, the new business, everything. I'm willing to give them my full focus. And I said to her, I said, yes, that is good that your family is the priority. They have to be, they should be the priority. But no, and there are seasons where you do have to do less external to focus on that. I've been through seasons like that where it's like external things cannot be a priority because the needs of my home, they need me. They need my attention. They need my focus. They need me present. But does that mean you won't ever get to do those things again? Absolutely not. But also you have a say so in how this is done. So even though you are willing to make this sacrifice for your family to take a break on extra things because there are some things that are needed in your home, which sometimes happen, you get to say how it's done because you're going to be doing the majority of the part of the work. So, yes, the sacrifice, but that doesn't mean everybody tells you how it has to be. You get to create the structure because you are the orchestrator of your home, because you are the manager of your home, because you are in charge of the kids' schedules and what happens during the day because you work from home. You get to say, this is how I need it to be structured so that everybody's needs are met. Not just one person, but all my children's needs are met. My husband's needs are met. My needs are met. And we have balance. So I say that to you. Maybe you do have to sacrifice some things. I've been there. But you have more control than you realize. And when you create that structure, you get a strategy that works for your family, you will have more moments of joy because you're not running here, you're not running there. Other people are not in control of what that looks like for you because you have to do it. So you get to sit down and say, okay, I am releasing some things for a season because some things that are higher priority need my attention. What does that look like for me so that I don't get lost in this? Because all of these things that I'm managing are my roles, but I am a whole person that has needs too. In this season, I am making the sacrifice. I am taking a break on the thing that I am the most passionate about because other things at higher priority require my attention. But what does that look like? So that in this decision that we need to make as a family, my needs are still included. That happened today. So I will say that for me was a reminder. And even as we make decisions, things are changing. I'm gonna have an 8th grader next year. You know, my son will be a senior next year. You know, we both work on everything we have is together, but we both individually work on um, a nonprofit or businesses, and then we have regular jobs. Like the calendar is filling up. That's great. We mentor kids, like we do a lot of things, but yes, it's good that we are pouring out and helping others and creating space for others, but where are we in that? And that's something that we continuously have to work on because just as much as I can find joy in sowing into others and pouring into others and creating space for whether it be ministry or businesses or purpose, God does not want us to get lost in the doing. I am a self-professed Martha. And we've heard that story where Jesus is there and she's doing all the doing. She's doing the doing. and Mary sitting at the feet of Jesus because that was the number one priority. And doers or people that are ambitious, we can get so caught up in the doing and the running and the pursuing that we forget to slow down and live. And sometimes living is just being present in the moment, not thinking about what's next. Sometimes living is finding joy in the moment, like sitting on the couch, watching a 29-minute show with my daughter, knowing that she had a long day of star testing today and I had a long work day, being present enough to know what small things can make a difference, what small things can bring me peace, what small things can bring me joy. Am I happy about everything in my life? No. But do I have the ability to find joy in things? Absolutely. So it was so interesting because in that talking about relationships, on page 51, she talks about how passive aggressive she was. That because she had not learned balance in that, including herself in needs, that she became very passive aggressive. So we know we have extremely aggressive people, we have passive aggressive, and then we have assertive people. So she talks about how she became good at playing the emotional game to get what she wanted without raising her voice. And she made other people feel guilty about not giving her what she wanted when she asked for it. And I would say that is a bad use of a superpower of a person that is more even tempered. I will say that early in our marriage, I was very passive aggressive because I did not like conflict. But what you don't understand is when you are unwilling to address things respectfully but directly, you create a dynamic in relationships that are unhealthy. It is not his fault that I could not communicate how I felt and what I needed. And so when I asked for something, or said I needed something, sometimes it was not prioritized because I very rarely communicated those things. So from his perspective, it must not be that important. Like, yeah, I hear you, but there are other things that are priority. So yeah, that dealt with some of the things that he deals with emotionally, but I'm just talking about me. I did not regularly communicate what I needed or what I wanted. And what we don't understand is being passive aggressive can be manipulative because you learn how to work around what gets them going, especially if they're emotionally charged or they're very expressive and you are not. All you have to do is get them worked up or get them angry. Then they respond in anger, and then you have ammo to get what you want. But it's unhealthy to do that, and that's why it's important that as we're making decisions, we are aware of ourselves, our needs, and we include ourselves in the decision-making process. So how is it fair to him that we were making a decision, a lot of decisions, and I knew in those moments sometimes, I don't know about this, or I don't like it, but I didn't want to argue and I didn't want it to be a big deal. So I didn't say anything. Okay, we're going to do it without expressing my concerns or my needs. Now the decision is made. We're midway flowing in this thing, and I am exactly where I knew I would be. And now either I'm trying to back out of the decision that we made, or I'm trying to make him feel bad about the decision that he made that I didn't put any input in. How is it fair? It's not. So that's why we get it. That's why it's important to do it on the front end. How do you find joy in your life? By including yourself in decisions that are made. Consider your need. And if this decision involves other people, express those needs. Because one or two things are going to happen. You're going to find a new way. Y'all are going to move forward with that decision. And then you really do have something to stand on because you originally communicated. Or the one we hope will happen is that you find a decision that is mutually beneficial, but doesn't diminish the goal or what you're trying to reach. And I'm sure that we'll talk about that at some point later in the book when we talk about decisions. But it was just an introduction to how important it is to consider, and I say not your happiness, but your needs when your decisions are being made. So I will leave with this quote. Women, us, we've learned to affirm, enhance, and celebrate the well being and status of everyone but ourselves. So if you need permission, here's your permission. And I can say I can give you permission because it works. You have the permission to affirm yourself. You have the permission to enhance yourself. And you have the permission to celebrate your well being. And I will add, you have the permission to consider your needs when decisions are made. It is not a sin. It is not selfish. It is not self absorbed. It is a part of creating a life that includes you. And as you get in the habit of doing those things, you will begin to see a change in how you see your own life and also how other people, treat you. Because people will only do what you allow. And so when I decided, you know what? I have to take partial responsibility for this. Things are the way that they are because of the things that I allowed or I did not communicate. So what am I going to do differently moving forward so that when I look at my life and the decisions that have been made, I can say they are a reflection of who I am or who I desire to be. So I look forward to the discussions that we have this week. My only challenge to you is continue your joy journal. And also, when you make decisions this week, if you do not usually consider yourself or your need in those moments of making decisions, I want you to be intentional about doing that. And then watch the outcome. You will feel better, even if the decision doesn't change. The fact that you were considered in the process will make you feel better about whatever the decision is. I hope you all have an amazing week and we will talk soon. For week 3, we will cover the remaining of Smile Pretty. So it will be Welcome to the Nation of Can-Do Optimists. The second question and prescriptions for contentment. I think it's going to be really good. So I will see you all later. Have an amazing evening.